Well, you have a central nervous system that consists of a brain and a spine. The brain is in the skull, and the spine proceeds out of the skull. The spine is in something called the vertebral column, or pardon me, vertebral canal. So what does the brain do? Well, it gets lots of input. And then what does it do? Well, it sends output commands. Where does he send it? He sends it through the spinal column and the peripheral nervous system. Now this brain is going to need food, and it's going to need oxygen. Where's it going to get that? Well, it gets that from the blood, which is carried to it through arteries. Must be a pretty hungry brain. It is. It's not too big, though. It's about 3 pounds, more or less. What does this brain consist of, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked that. Well, let's not go to the bottom of the brain. It's called the brainstem. Let's talk about what that looks like. Well, let's move this up a bit. Brainstem looks something like this. And something like this. That's pretty bad. This thing is called the pons. And this thing is called the cerebellum. Cerebellum is in charge of cool stuff like balance, coordination. You got the medulla over here. All right, let's go back up to the top of the brain. And here's the skull. And the brain is protected by these 3 layers, these 3 membranes. It's a real tough one on the outside, just beneath the skull. It's called the tough mother, Dura. And then inside of that is a web-like membrane. They're also called Meninges, membrane Meninges. Same. And the second layer down, after Dura matter, is Dura mater, is something called the arachnoid. Still looks like a web. Arachna, spider, oid, like. Then on the inside, they got the pia mater. That's the tender mother, soft mom. Now, in between this stuff, between the arachnoid and the pia mater, is pretty important stuff. And that's called the cerebral spinal fluid. The cerebral spinal fluid. We got to write that down. Okay, let's write it down. Cerebral spinal fluid. Yeah, it's a protective buffer. Yeah, it's the buffer zone. So if you're a UFC fighter, you want to really hope that your buffer zone is very thick, filled with lots of cerebral spinal fluid. It's a shock absorber. It's clear fluid. And it's called what? The cerebral, because it's a buffer zone in the brain. Spinal, because it's also in the spinal cord. Fluid, because it's a fluid. And it's a clear fluid, though. Well, that's it. Thanks so much for listening. This is George Bull. Bye-bye now.